Hello, everyone. Today we're going to have an MCU tier list. I recently did a DCEU tier list after Black Adam. You can check that out in the comments below. You can also check out my top 10 favorite Marvel films from a couple of months ago. But since we had Wakanda Forever and some new MCU shows, I decided to have a tier list for the MCU. Before I continue, get some drinks, get a snack, and share your least to most favorite MCU show or film down in the comments below. Let's spread our Marvel love. Here we go. We're going to have superb, awesome, okay, meh, and terrible as the categories. And starting off with Iron Man, I'm going to say that is superb. There's something about the first Iron Man that is still, I think, the best Marvel film in many ways. It's grounded, it's set in the real world. Robert Downey Jr. gets the performance of a lifetime. I cannot see anyone else as Tony Stark but him. Talk about a comeback. It's much more hardcore than the Disney-fied MCU we have now. I mean, he gets captured by the Ten Rings, of course, but it's pretty much Al-Qaeda. And it ushered in a new age of superhero on film with The Dark Knight in 2008. Going with the year of '08, I would say The Incredible Hulk is not only underrated, but it's superb. It's nice seeing the angry Hulk. He's been so dumbed down and nerfed lately that I kind of miss this Hulk. Ed Norton did a wonderful job. I would love it if Mark Ruffalo had the chance to work with material like this. But in this version, it's pretty much like the comics meets the '70s show with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby. It definitely is like that, and I love this. And then Tim Roth, who could forget Tim Roth as the Abomination? He was just awesome. Seeing Liv Tyler, William Hurt, the late great William Hurt. This movie is just underrated, underappreciated, and I think it's superb, especially in the phase one of the MCU. Going with Thor, I would say the first Thor is awesome. I don't think it's the best film ever made, let alone MCU film. But something about this one stays more, I think, true to the comics and the Norse mythology. I would have loved to see what Kenneth Branagh would have done with a trilogy, but this, hands down, in retrospect, is the best Thor film out of all four, in my personal opinion. Going with awesome, I would say Captain America First Avenger is awesome. The first two acts, I think it's almost going to be superb. And my favorite Marvel origin film with Deadpool and X-Men First Class, until the ending, I don't like how they rushed it for the Avengers, and him waking up 70 years later being okay in Times Square is just unbelievable. But who could forget Hugo Weaving as Red Skull, Tommy Lee Jones in this film, Agent Carter in this, you get to see Howard Stark. Chris Evans knocked it out of the park. You can't even tell he's the Human Torch in Fantastic Four. And going with Captain America, let's go Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is like the Dark Knight of the MCU. I love this like espionage thriller from the Russos. They ground it. They break that MCU cookie cutter formula to bits. Seeing Bucky, Sebastian Stan as a Winter Soldier, Black Widow, Nick Fury with Captain America in a modern world of like post-terror, and seeing how Hydra infiltrates S.H.I.E.L.D. is just so intense. Who could forget Robert Redford in this film? He's fantastic. The introduction of the Falcon. Man, this movie is just incredible and one of my favorites from the MCU. It's superb. And going with that, with Captain America Civil War, I think this is a superb film as well. It doesn't exactly adapt the Civil War comic arc, but it pays homage to it. It's Avengers 2.5. That kind of holds it back a bit, but I love the ideology here. It's like this and BVS came out the same year in almost the same movie. Black Panther and Spider-Man introduced in the MCU in this film. I think Spider-Man and Black Panther are actually better in this film than their solo films, in my personal opinion. I love this film. And who could forget that revelation with Tony Stark's parents, that final fight? And I think Captain America has to be the most consistent MCU trilogy so far. I have to see how Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to be. Iron Man 2 is okay. It was meh when I first saw it. I didn't like Terrence Howard being recasted with Don Cheadle. The story wasn't as good as the first, in my opinion. Something about it just felt a little soulless compared to the first film. But Jon Favreau, in retrospect, did a fantastic job for what he had, and you could tell that the producers and everyone were pushing for the Avengers. Natasha Romanoff is awesome in this. She should have been like this in her film. But in retrospect, it's actually one of the better movies, and I kind of missed the MCU before it was so Disney-fied with Disney. Iron Man 3, I really dislike the Mandarin twist, but I'm going to have to say it's awesome. I like Iron Man 3 a lot better than 2, despite its shortcomings. It would have been superb if it was actually the Mandarin and they didn't waste him. But, yeah. I love Shang-Chi how they made a joke out of that. Going with terrible real quick, I did not like She-Hulk. I love that character, but I did not like the show, and it's a shame because the actress is great. I love the Daredevil stuff, but just the effects, the writing, it was just terrible all around. Such a missed opportunity in my eyes. And I know she breaks the fourth wall and the comedy is there like in the comics, but just the way it's done just wasn't good. It was just terrible. I'm still hurt by the way they did She-Hulk and how they nerfed Hulk as well in result. It was just, the whole thing was just horrible. It was garbage. Thor: The Dark World, I would say, is meh. I didn't like it as much as the first, and it's not that it's too dark, it's just that that space elf is like a Power Ranger villain. Like, it's cheesy. Like, it's just horrible. Like, it felt like a Power Rangers movie. And not Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. It felt like Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. Also, meh, Thor Ragnarok. It had some cool moments, some great soundtrack needle drop moments. Kate Blanchett was fantastic. Seeing Thor, Valkyrie, and Loki team up and Hulk team up, that was great. The whole Ragnarok story, but it should have been darker. It was too jokey. It was just, I'm going to be honest, Taika Waititi, Joel Schumacher, the Thor movies, the way Joel Schumacher did Batman. You had the first two movies, and then the third one's there, has a little bit of an edge, but there's comedy in it and a tone in it that they doubled down in part 4. And it started with the third film. People do not want to admit that. They're like, how dare you speak bad about Thor Ragnarok? Thor Ragnarok is the Batman Forever of the MCU. Going with Captain Marvel, that was just a terrible movie. It retconned a lot of stuff with Nick Fury. I did not like Carol Danvers as a character, let alone Brie Larson as a person. Like, she just, no. Just has a bratty, awful attitude. Just unlikable. I just did not like that film at all. And I wanted to, but I just didn't. We'll get going with the terribles out of the way. Eternals, I think, is the worst of the MCU films. It's just all over the place. There's characters and antagonists I do not care about. This would have been better if they split it as 2 movies where they had the past story as a whole movie and then the present day story as another. Icarus was probably the best part about this whole movie. I think it was overrated. It's just very mundane and soulless and boring. Like, this movie is like 2 hours and something minutes, and it felt like I was watching it for 4 hours. Where when I was like watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, it felt like 2 hours in a 4-hour movie, or even Lord of the Rings, Return of the King Extended Edition. You can't compare them, but as much as it had that kind of Kirby aesthetic, it just missed the mark all over the place, and that's a bummer because I really, really was looking forward to the Eternals. Iron Fist, I would have as the last MCU thing that's terrible. I did not like it. It's like an Arrow ripoff with a guy who didn't know martial arts. Like, that whole character, he was just lame. Black Widow's kind of meh to me, and it's a shame because she should have had a movie a long time ago. She was long overdue for a film, and it makes me mad that Marvel didn't care about women or female superheroes, and Black Widow especially, until Wonder Woman came out and made money, because Black Widow should have had a film right after Iron Man 2, if we're being honest. I didn't like Scarlett Johansson in that movie. The plot wasn't as good. This would have benefited from the R rating like the director wanted. I actually liked Rachel Weisz, maybe Florence Pugh more than I did the title character, David Harbour. Olga Kurylenko is great. I did not like what they did with Taskmaster, and it's not them making her a woman. I loved her being a woman. What I didn't like was her being a mindless robot. It would have been cool if they made a female Taskmaster, but that was still like the Taskmaster from the comics or even the Spider-Man video game or Avengers video game. Like, that would have been kind of cool. And then her being, like, injured and going after Black Widow for that assassination attempt on her father. Like, that whole thing would have been a cool plot if they did that. But it's just too unbelievable, too fake. That was just disappointing. It was just a mess. It was an encapsulation of everything that's wrong with the MCU right now, and has been since the beginning, to be honest. Age of Ultron is meh. I know a lot of people like the darker Avengers. I did not like the second Joss Whedon one at all. It has some great moments, but how the hell do you waste James Spader as an evil robot? Like, you have Ultron there. There's just a lot of setup for the next phase, which isn't bad because it's necessary. And I have to say, WandaVision actually strengthened this film, but to me, it's meh out of the 4 Avengers. Spider-Man 1 and 2, I'm going to say, are superb. Those are some of the greatest comic book movies ever made. I love the first 2 Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans. Spider-Man 3, on the other hand, I'm going to say meh. It's far from being terrible, but I still dislike that film. That character's still damaged because of the stuff they did in that movie, I feel. Despite 2 different actors playing Spider-Man, that character on film hasn't really recovered since that movie. Venom and Venom 2, I think, are meh. I don't like the Venom movies. If they make a Venom 3, they need to have Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man could go up against Venom. Like, they need that. Going with more TV shows, I would say Loki is meh. I didn't like that show as much, but I really don't like that character, so it's not really a knock against the show. I just personally do not like Loki. I actually kind of cheered when Thanos snapped his neck in Infinity War. Morbius is meh. Same reasons why Venom's meh. And then Multiverse of Madness I wanted to like, and I enjoyed moments of it, but to me it was meh. I'm still trying to, like, figure out what the hell happened in that movie. And then I know Wanda became bad, but like it was just so jarring going from WandaVision to this. Like you could tell the director did not watch WandaVision before this movie. This movie was just a mess. Speaking of WandaVision, I have to say that is awesome. I wish Legion was on here because that is a show that is actually cerebral. That is awesome. Everybody was losing their stuff over WandaVision. Like, you want your brain fried, watch Legion from FX. That's an X-Men show that would really mess with your head. But WandaVision was good. First 2 episodes, while it was a nod to the Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy, old TV, it was just kind of everywhere. And it really didn't get going until episode 3 when Monica Rambeau came in. Then that started picking up. Luke Cage, I'm going to say, is awesome. I like Luke Cage. It's almost superb, but there's some moments in 1 and 2 that kind of hold it back. But Luke Cage is vastly underrated. I love the Netflix shows. Hawkeye is awesome. I love Hawkeye. Haley Steinfeld's perfectly cast as Kate Bishop. Jeremy Renner actually has more to do as Hawkeye. I actually like Hawkeye in his own show. I wish he had certain material like that in the Avenger films. And it was cool seeing Kingpin. Guardians of the Galaxy is awesome. It's not the greatest thing since Star Wars, but the first one actually is pretty awesome. Same thing with Avengers. It was the first time you had all the heroes team up in one movie, and I like how they did that. I thought it was a little bit overrated back then. I think it's good, not great, but it's pretty awesome. We gotta admit, I mean, it's the first time you see the Avengers on screen together. How awesome is that? I remember when I went to go see it, there was a 70-year-old man who's wearing a Captain America t-shirt, and he said he was waiting his whole life to see this movie. People forget and people take for granted how incredible of a time we're living in when we get to see all these characters together, you know? Just take that in. Continuing with the awesome list, I would say Black Panther is awesome. That movie's a little bit overrated, but I love Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in power. Oh, he's the greatest T'Challa. I like that movie. It's a better Lion King remake than The Lion King, and it's no wonder because both Black Panther and Lion King are a little bit derived from Hamlet anyway, so it's very Shakespearean in that way. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, is awesome. As Gracie and Sam and Bucky's story continue, U.S. Agent was brutal. Seeing Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's son, did such a great job that you just love to hate him. Like, he plays such a scumbag. And then you have Baron Zemo return. That was kind of cool. And then Wakanda Forever, I say, is awesome. To me, it was almost okay, but Shuri being the Black Panther and seeing Namor, the Submariner, finally, his stuff was incredible. So it knocked it up to awesome. It knocked it up to awesome for me. Continuing with Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man 1, I would say, is awesome. I like it. The only problem is that they did a reboot way too soon, but Andrew Garfield is a comic-accurate Spider-Man. He reminds me of the Ultimate Spider-Man from the early 2000s. Then Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think, is okay. They have moments that are awesome, but then other moments that are kind of meh, so it kind of puts it in the middle for me as okay. And then Spider-Man Homecoming, I think, is okay. I love that film in my first viewing, and then repeated viewings, it didn't work for me, even though it has that nice John Hughes vibe. It just felt too Disney-fied. They made him Iron Boy instead of Spider-Man, and I just did not like that movie as much. Spider-Man Far From Home, I would say, is awesome. I like Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, and the kind of European vacation element was kind of cool. No Way Home, on the other hand, is superb, in my opinion. It's a bit overrated. Could the characters have returned in a more epic way? Sure. But you have 3 Spider-Man in one movie. How awesome is that? Seeing all the villains, William Dafoe kills it in this. The first act is just so Disney-fied still that it doesn't really feel like a Spider-Man film until Green Goblin turns bad and Aunt May is killed. That's when it finally starts to feel like a Sony Spider-Man film, and the fighting goes back to the way it was in the Tobey Maguire films. It feels like Spider-Man, finally. This is a movie where Tom Holland goes from Iron Boy to Spider-Man, and it's fantastic. Going with okay, I would say Moon Knight. I actually really loved Moon Knight. It was awesome up until the end. And by the end, I mean the final scene and then them in the final fight, not showing the final fight at all. That ruined it for me. And I wasn't really a fan of Mr. Knight. You know, I liked Moon Knight. That was like hardcore. It was awesome. That character like Submariner has been long overdue in live action media. But that's what knocked it down for me. Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think, are okay. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think, is okay. Even though I think the third act is better. Like, the whole ending with Kurt Russell's ego, Yondu, that sad moment, that's stronger than the first film, the emotion. But the first 2 acts of it, I think, are not as strong as the first film's first 2 acts when you have all the team introduced and the Collector and stuff. I'm going to put Defenders as okay. I think The Defenders is okay. It was nice seeing like the low-level Avengers team up on Netflix. Miss Marvel, I think, is okay. I'm mad that they switched her origin. If she was like the Kamala Khan from the comics and Avengers video game, this would have been awesome or superb. Because of that, it got knocked down to okay. And Marvel Legends, I think, is okay. Now we're going to Superb. Continuing the Superb, Come on, man. Avengers Infinity War and Endgame are both superb. They're like one long movie. It's like seeing the Secret Wars arc, seeing an epic comic book crossover and a comic book event come to life. That is the pinnacle of the MCU right there. And some part of me kind of wishes that they just left it with the Avengers Endgame, just ended it all, didn't continue, because it was perfect. What If is superb. I love all the different scenarios of what if could happen with the Watcher and Jeffrey Wright playing him. Shang-Chi, I absolutely love Shang-Chi. His father, the real Mandarin, was so compelling. You sympathize with him, yet he was a villain. It brought it back to the basics of what made Marvel Comics so special to begin with. And I'm talking about MCU or like Marvel as a brand. I'm talking about Marvel Comics, like the comic books. When you think of Magneto or Doctor Doom, they have so many fantastic villains that are just as sympathetic as the heroes. And you see why they're doing what they're doing and grounded them in reality. Because, you know, Marvel's not like in a fictional place like Gotham City or Metropolis. They're in New York, San Francisco. They're in the real world. Films like this and characters like these make it feel like it's Marvel, these heroes that are living in our real world. That makes it feel true to Marvel. Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, superb. Kevin Bacon. Werewolf by Night is superb. They should just do more specials on Disney+. The short special presentations have been actually stronger than the series. And speaking of series, I know everybody's losing their shit over Disney. Jessica Jones, Punisher, and Daredevil, all three are superb. I miss the Netflix era of Marvel. And yes, it is in the MCU. People were watching She-Hulk. Daredevil's finally in the MCU. I'm like, yeah, he's always been in the MCU. They mentioned the first Avengers and the attack on New York in the first season of Daredevil. Where have you been, you know? It's just crazy. Anyway, that does it for my tier list of the MCU. I know this video is a little bit long. I kind of went on a rant here and there. It's kind of everywhere, but let me know your least to most favorite of MCU film or TV show down in the comments below. Share your Marvel love. In the meantime, you can subscribe for more videos and check out these other comic book related videos for more content. May everyone stay safe and healthy, and I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.